Moon on her brow.
There was once, as stories often begin, a man and his wife who lived quietly and happily, and they had a daughter so beautiful and pure that they named her Luna Fairchild. When Luna was 7 years old, her father sent her to the village school to learn from Eleanor.
Children sometimes brought gifts to Eleanor, and when they did, Eleanor noticed that Luna's offerings were always the finest. Eleanor grew fond of Luna and, bit by bit, began to pry secrets from the child. It did not take long for her to learn that Luna's father was well off and the family lacked for nothing.
Eleanor was warm in her kindness at first, but she was sly. She won Luna's trust so completely that if she had said the sky was green, Luna would have believed it at once. One day Eleanor took a bowl and gave it to Luna with a request. "Take this bowl to your mother and tell her I send my greeting. Ask her to fill it with the 7th year vinegar from the cellar and bring it to me. When your mother goes to the cellar, go with her. Tell her I insist that she fetch the vinegar only from the 7th jar and from no other. The moment she leans over the 7th jar, strike her into the vinegar with the bowl, lift her feet, throw her into the jar, and close the lid."
Luna answered, "Very well," and did as she was told. She did not throw her mother into the jar, of course. Eleanor had given her the instruction and Luna, trusting, followed orders. That night when her father came home, he asked, "Where is your mother?" Luna replied, "I don't know. When I came home, she was not there."
The next day at school Luna told Eleanor what had happened. Eleanor rejoiced, embraced Luna, set her on her knee, kissed her, and smoothed her hair. A few days later Eleanor gave Luna a handful of flaxseed and whispered a plan. "When you return home, sprinkle these over your head. Sit before the hearth and shake your head so that the seeds fall into the fire and make a popping sound. When your father asks what that noise is, tell him your head is infested with lice and that you have no one to tend you, to comb and wash your hair and bring you to the bath. Then begin to sob and say that your father must take a wife to look after you, someone to dry and smooth your things and to touch your hair. If he asks whom you mean, tell him to hang a leather pouch by the door. The first person who comes and touches it will be the one to take as your stepmother."
Luna did as she was instructed. The following morning her father, taken by her performance, hung a leather pouch above the doorway and declared he would take a wife. Eleanor, waiting for just such a moment, arrived at the house on some pretext. She bumped against the pouch with affected clumsiness and started a scene of mock offense. "Oh my. Something hit my head and left me soiled." The father apologized, explained the circumstances, and soon after he and Eleanor were married by the parish priest. Eleanor took Luna's hand and brought her home.
Eleanor had a daughter who, by contrast to Luna, was plain and awkward. The new wife brought that daughter to the Fairchild home with her belongings and settled in. She spent a few days fussing with the household and examining its furnishings, and then she went to the cellar and opened the 7th vinegar jar.
Out stepped a pale yellow cow from the jar. Eleanor, startled, feared for a moment that the cow might be Luna's mother in disguise. She drove the animal to the barn and, from that day forward, treated Luna harshly. She loaded her with the most menial labor, fetching water, sweeping the yard, washing the linens and dishes, and punished her without mercy. To any visitor she seemed merely a servant. Luna, fearful and submissive, dared not tell her father the truth.
Soon Eleanor found more ways to torment Luna. From tomorrow, she commanded, before sunrise you will sweep every room and wash all the dishes. Then you will take a bundle of cotton and a spindle and the cow to the meadow and graze it until evening. You will spin the cotton into thread and bring the yarn back to me at dusk. Luna, who could not say no, answered meekly, very well.
At dawn the next day she rose and did as she was told. She carried the bundle on her head, took the spindle in hand, led the cow from the stall, and went to the meadow. There she sat on a stone and began to spin. By evening she had only half of the cotton spun, and tears fell from her eyes. The cow approached, looked at her with a strange sympathy, then began to chew the raw cotton on one side while producing spun thread from the other. Before the sun set, the cow had spun every last fiber into thread.
Luna gathered the yarn, wrapped it in the bundle, and led the cow home. She delivered the thread to Eleanor, who examined it and, unable to find fault, ordered Luna back to her household tasks. Luna, exhausted and hungry, ate the meager scrap of bread she was given and fell asleep in a corner with wet cheeks.
The next morning Eleanor gave her 3 bundles of cotton. Luna took them and set out for the meadow, but when evening came she had spun only a portion. A gust of wind lifted some of the cotton and carried it toward a well, where the cotton fell in. Luna despaired. Now they will beat me until I cannot stand, she thought, and began to cry. The cow came close, stuck out its tongue, and, astonishingly, spoke to her. "Child, do not be afraid. Go into the well. A witch lives there. Say hello first, and then do the opposite of whatever she asks. The witch's ways are all backwards."
The cow taught Luna how to speak with that witch, and Luna climbed into the well. At the bottom she found a small, enchanted garden, and in it lay a shaggy, rough witch. Luna greeted her loudly and properly. The witch opened her eyes and said, "Ah, black-eyed, white-toothed one. If you had not greeted me, I would have eaten you in one bite. Tell me, how did you come here and what do you seek?" Luna told her entire story: Eleanor, the jars of vinegar, the cow that fed her, and the burdens of the household.
The witch replied, "First, take that stone and strike it into my head." Luna did so, and then, obedient to the witch's next strange commands, she set to finding and picking out fleas and lice from the witch's hair. When the witch asked whether her head was cleaner than her stepmother's, Luna answered plainly that the witch's head was cleaner. The witch approved.
Now, the witch said, "Take the hoe and destroy my house." Luna, puzzled, picked up a broom and swept the yard instead. When the witch asked whether her yard was finer than Luna's home yard, Luna answered that the witch's yard was of marble compared to their simple earth yard. The witch instructed her to wash the dishes until they shone like mirrors. Luna did so. Pleased, the witch told her to fetch the spun yarn, and when Luna reached it near the fence she found not only the yarn but also several sacks of gold. Luna did not touch the gold. She gathered only the yarn.
The witch then directed her to walk through 3 successive gardens and follow very particular instructions by the stream. When the water flowed dark, do not touch it. When it flowed black, splash it on your temples and eyebrows. And when it flowed white, wash your face with it. Luna obeyed. As she washed her face with the white water, a new and wondrous thing appeared. A moon glowed on her forehead and a star shone on her chin. When she left the well, the light she carried allowed her to see in the dusk. She wrapped the moon and star under her scarf and hurried home.
Eleanor examined the yarn and could not find a flaw. She ordered Luna to finish her household chores, and when Luna swept into the kitchen, the lanterns seemed to brighten as if a chandelier had been lit. The moon on her brow and the star on her chin made her face so fair that Eleanor stood agape. For a moment, Eleanor forgot to be cruel and asked, without beating or scolding, "Tell me how this happened." Luna told her everything, plainly.
Eleanor, clever as she was, conceived a plan. Early the next morning she said to Luna, "Take my daughter with you to the meadow today. Show her the well and the way you work, and let her do the same. Perhaps she too will come back transformed like you." Luna agreed.
That afternoon, under the heat of the sun, Luna led Eleanor's daughter to the well. The girl threw her cotton in and jumped down. The witch, roused by the girl's presence, demanded the same impossible things she had asked Luna. The girl performed them clumsily, and when told to fetch the thread, she found not thread but only the cotton. Beside it lay several bars that looked like gold. The girl, thinking only of riches, shoved a few heavy lumps under her arm and fled.
On the path home the girl looked in a puddle and cried out in terror. A black snake had appeared on her forehead and a yellow scorpion on her chin. She tried to hide them, but Eleanor was furious and struck her. They carried the girl to the village physician, who examined her and said, "The root of this trouble lies in the heart. It cannot be entirely removed. We can only cut away the growths from time to time and salt the place so they do not take root." Thus the girl, and her affliction, became a permanent sorrow. Eleanor would cut and the snake and scorpion would reappear.
From that day on, Eleanor increased her cruelty toward Luna. No kindness remained. The girl's life was a litany of labor and abuse. Eleanor's daughter, by contrast, was brought out to festivals and adorned, though she bore the curse hidden beneath her scarf.
One day the neighbors invited Eleanor and her daughter to a wedding and, promising they would attend, asked him to come. Eleanor dressed her daughter in new clothes, bedecked her with jewelry, and wrapped a silk scarf around her face to conceal the snake and scorpion. She also dressed in her finery. Luna stood apart and watched with silent longing.
"Do you wish to come with us to the wedding?" Eleanor asked Luna. "Yes," Luna answered. "Very well," said Eleanor, who had a scheme in mind. She piled 3 kinds of legumes together, peas, beans, and split peas, and asked Luna to sort them apart into separate bowls before they returned, as if that would be Luna's own wedding feast. She handed Luna a small dish and said, "Fill this with your tears and separate these for me while we are gone."
Luna sat by the garden cistern and, heartbroken, wondered how to weep enough and sort such a mixture. Then she remembered the witch's words, "If you are in trouble, come to me." She rushed back to the well, greeted the witch, and told her the problem. The witch laughed and gave her a pinch of sea salt and a rooster that would peck the seeds apart as she spilled them. The witch also opened a small trunk and took out a bridal gown, a crown and jewels, and a tiny earthen bottle that contained a fragrant oil to make Luna nimble and graceful. Wear these at the wedding, the witch instructed, and when you leave, change back into your old clothes.
Luna did as she was told. She poured water in the dish, mixed in the salt, and used the rooster to sort the seeds. Then she hid the fine garments in the barn, donned them and the jewelry, perfumed herself lightly, and went to the wedding.
From the moment she entered the hall, the guests were struck dumb. No one paid attention to the bride because all eyes fixed upon Luna. Her beauty and radiance were like the moon risen at dusk. The groom's kin thought her a member of their household. The bride's kin thought she belonged to the other side. Eleanor's daughter, who had followed, stared and whispered, "Mother, could it be her?" Eleanor, angry and jealous, dismissed such talk. Nonsense. She is only the one who sits at home and cries, nothing more. Yet everyone admired Luna's every movement.
When the girls took turns dancing, Luna rose and danced as if the music were made for her alone. She danced so lightly and so well that the bouquet she threw into the crowd burst into a shower of flowers that rained over the guests, and with her other hand she swept a handful of white ash toward Eleanor and her daughter. The ash settled on their heads and faces like a cloud of shame. The guests wondered how a single stranger could cause both such blessing and such humiliation in an instant.
Seeing that the hall had become a confusion of wonder, Luna slipped away and hurried home. On her way, a prince, returning from a hunt, rounded a bend and beheld her. "Who is this girl in our town I never saw?" he murmured, and followed. Luna, alarmed, quickened her pace, and in crossing a stream, lost one of her shoes. She left it on the bank and ran away, fearing the prince might catch her. The prince picked up the single shoe and kept it, determined to find the girl who had worn it.
Meanwhile, Eleanor and her daughter returned home, furious at the turn of events. "Did you fill the dish with your tears?" Eleanor demanded. Luna returned the dish, now full of water, and showed the sorted seeds. Eleanor examined them, bewildered at how Luna could have sorted both the tears and the seeds so perfectly. She suspected the cow was the cause of Luna's success and resolved to rid herself of that animal. She arranged with the physician to feign illness, so that when the physician declared the treatment required the meat of the yellow cow, her husband would kill it for the cure.
That very night, Eleanor put on a show of illness, groaning and tossing in bed. Her husband fetched herbs and tried to comfort her, but she pretended the pain increased until the village physician was summoned. The physician pronounced that only the flesh of the yellow cow would cure her. "We have such a cow," the husband said. "I will have it killed at dawn." Luna heard this and was beside herself with grief. She could think of no way to save the cow, her only friend, so she rushed to the witch for counsel once more.
The witch told her not to despair. "Bring your mother, or rather the cow, to the meadow and leave her there," the witch said. "I will send a double to take the cow's place." Luna did as she was told. She led the yellow cow to the pasture and left it grazing while she prepared for the night. The witch then sent a substitute cow to the house. At dawn, the farmer brought the cow to the butcher, who slew it and roasted the meat. The family ate, but Luna did not touch a bite. Following the witch's instructions, she gathered the bones later and buried them in the barnyard.
Eleanor recovered and believed the cow was truly dead. She thought now nothing could help Luna, unaware that Prince Arthur had by then fallen desperately in love with the girl who had left her shoe by the stream. He could think of nothing else and grew ill with longing. The physicians were baffled until his mother, the Queen, intervened and sent her household to find the owner of the shoe. Old matrons went from house to house trying the shoe on every maiden, but it fit none until they reached the Fairchild home.
In the Fairchild house, Eleanor, fearing discovery, hid Luna in the oven and set a small tray of millet nearby to distract the clucking of a fussy hen. The old matrons entered and asked, "Do you have a daughter in this house?" Eleanor presented her own daughter instead. The girl tried on the shoe. It would not fit. The matrons asked again for other daughters. Eleanor proclaimed her own child unique and dear. While the matrons tried the shoe, the hen began to sing, "Cock-a-doodle-doo, lift the tray, moon on the forehead lies in the oven today. Cock-a-doodle-doo, lift the tray, take her away."
The matrons were astonished to hear the bird repeat such words. They lifted the oven lid and there, to their amazement, lay a girl like a full moon in the night, Luna, with a moon upon her brow and a star upon her chin. One of the matrons took her hand and pulled her from the oven. They fitted the shoe to her foot and it fit perfectly. The matrons cried, "Who has ever seen such a maiden, with a moon upon her forehead and a star on her chin?" They recognized the shoe and immediately declared that the prince had fallen in love with her. They offered to bring Luna to the palace at once.
Eleanor, desperate to avoid complete ruin, asked only for a small compensation and one peculiar condition. "If you will take her to the prince," she said, "you must bring my daughter later for another match." The matrons agreed to report this and promised that, by royal command, the Chancellor's son would take her companion in marriage.
The next day Luna was brought to the palace. Before she left, she slipped to the well and told the witch she was being taken to wed. The witch gave her fine silk and jewels and instructed her to accept whatever the prince offered, but to discreetly discard any wine he gave her. She also reminded Luna of what to do if she felt unwell. Luna followed the witch's guidance faithfully.
At the palace, the prince and Luna were married in a grand ceremony. Music and feasting followed. That evening Prince Arthur drank deeply and fell asleep utterly drunk. About midnight Luna felt a sudden sickness. Following the witch's instructions, she relieved herself privately and cleaned the prince's garments and left him to dry on the rosebushes outside. Before dawn she returned and laid the garments at his feet. When he awoke, he was astonished to find his clothes clean and fresh and to learn what Luna had done. He rewarded her with a diamond bracelet and his love grew deeper than ever.
Back home, Eleanor ran to the palace and peered into Luna's new life. Seeing Luna adorned in jewels and silk, she whispered into her ear, "Did your heart not ache last night?" Luna answered candidly. Eleanor left, burning with envy, and began to arrange the marriage of her own daughter with pomp and ceremony. When the Chancellor's son took Eleanor's daughter to wife and later received the discovery of her unsightly curse, he fled the bridal chamber in horror and reported the matter. The king and his council were outraged at the deception. As punishment, the king ordered that Eleanor and her daughter be thrown from the city wall into the moat. The royal household rejoiced at justice served.
Yet Luna's thoughts were with her mother, the cow, and she could not be content. In the early morning she went again to the witch's well and begged for help. The witch, moved by Luna's love, took a blade and flayed the substitute cow, from head to tail. In that instant Luna's mother returned in her true form, embraced her daughter, and the witch spoke, "Go now and live happily. You have shown loyalty and humility. You have been rewarded."
Luna and her mother, reunited, returned to the palace. The prince was so pleased by the loving mother he found in his wife's home that he provided a fine house for her near the court. There they lived for many years in peace and prosperity.
As for Eleanor and her daughter, the king's sentence remained. They were cast from the wall into the moat, and their cruelty was ended. The household sang and feasted, and Luna's gentle heart found rest and joy. And so, as the tale closes and the people say at every good ending, may you also find what your heart desires.